Well, I'm joined now by fashion commentator Karen Franklin, former editor of ID magazine and TV presenter, and from New York, Gavin McInnes, the writer and co-founder of Vice magazine and a personal friend of Terry Richardson. Well, Gavin McInnes first. There are so many allegations now, it's getting increasingly hard to ignore them, isn't it?
Is it? Are there an increasing number?
Well, there seem to be rather a lot of allegations.
My understanding is there's two. And you talk about models. You know what? In fact, there's three. There's two from these models that decided that they were uncomfortable with it years after the act. And then there was one that turned out to be a hoax, a fake Facebook hoax. And these women, by the way, minor detail, they're not models. This Jamie Peck girl is essentially a porn star. She used to work at Suicide Girls. She wears a shirt that says slut on it, and she goes over to this photographer's house after sending flirtatious emails, and then on a slow news day she decides, years later, that she's uncomfortable with the experience in retrospect.
She's not here to defend herself. So let's just keep the discussion general. There's a power imbalance here, isn't there, between a famous photographer and a young, vulnerable woman.
I'm not trying to...
The fact remains she's not here to defend herself. So
these women are not vulnerable. The two women in this case... Okay. She is a Suicide Girl, a member of that organization. They're not known for their fragility. Okay, it's not the most chaste organization.
Okay, but there are models in the industry who are young and vulnerable, and he is a powerful photographer. There is a potential power imbalance there, isn't there?
Ergo, he must be preying on them. If someone's vulnerable and someone has power, then let's just put the two together and invent a story. There is no story here. And here's another huge detail the press is leaving out. Terry Richardson and other photographers cannot influence a model's career. Karl Lagerfeld, Tom Ford, those people call the shots. A photographer is just a photographer. This is all a myth, this myth of influence. And someone like her, Jamie Peck, you could own Vogue magazine. She could be Anna Wintour's niece, and Anna Wintour could try to stuff her in the magazine, and they'd pull her back out again. They have very strict parameters, and they're based on ridiculous fads about bone structure.
Okay, Karen Franklin, Richardson himself has said that this is an emotionally charged witch hunt.
I think what we've got to look at is what young women are saying, and we've got to also examine a culture in which quite often high-status males are able to, just as Gavin did there, pour discredit on these women because they've spoken out. And we've just come off the back of Max Clifford having accused women of being fantasists and liars when they were telling a story of being sexually harassed, which is what's happening here. There's a lot of alleged sexual harassment. But my question at this juncture is a man who takes photographs of himself with explicit graphic content, of which Gavin was involved in the book, is he the right man to be living alone with very young models?
Gavin McInnes, that's a valid question, isn't it? Richardson's photos feature himself naked or near naked. Is that appropriate?
Yes, that's none of anybody's business. This is like when Jeff Koons married a porn star. This is all part of his art. And by the way, he's not left alone preying on these women, okay? I've been to these shoots. There's lighting people. There's about a dozen people there, many of them women. And when you go on these witch hunts, by the way, these women who work for him, these assistants, these lighting people, these editors, they lose the work when you cancel these projects. So I'm not saying this woman is wrong because she's made allegations.
Okay, why is it appropriate for him to be naked and the models to be near naked with him? Why is that appropriate in a professional setting?
Why is that inappropriate? What is this, Victorian England? Have you guys gone backwards a few hundred years? He's always been very explicit about his explicitness. And by the way, when you insist on going over into getting a shoot done by him, Aren't you aware of his work? Haven't you seen the pictures? These pictures, by the way, are terrible for his career. His agency hates when he does this stuff. The clients hate when he does this stuff, but he does it because that's his background. He's a New Yorker. He's an ex-punker. That's his life.
Okay, Karen Franklin, we're being prudes.
I think Gavin is struggling. He's talking a load of tosh, and he's not actually addressing the issue here. Quite often, and he fronts himself like someone who knows the industry. These models are very young. They're put into an environment in which they're encouraged to act in a very sexually provocative way. They're surrounded by a team that are of Terry's choosing, and the boundaries are blurred. He is producing hyper-sexualized imagery, pornographic in some cases, in which they are encouraged to go further and further and further. Okay. Where is the professional boundary? This man is overstepping that boundary.
Okay, Gavin McInnes, it's, at the very least, it's an industry that simply doesn't treat women with any respect whatsoever, does it?
That's false, first of all. That's unequivocally false. This is all, by the way, gay men who are obsessed with skinny women because the clothes fit on them well. It's not my cup of tea, but it's what works. Terry is not indicative of this bigger problem. And you talk about people not being able to defend themselves. You've lumped him in with all of sexism. We have these poor, frail women, and now Terry is responsible for this entire construct.
But I'm talking about the industry
he's not
generally.
Here to defend himself. I've been to these shoots. He doesn't prey on these women.
Okay, I'm talking about the
Generally,
industry.
I'm not here to defend mankind or the entire fashion industry.
Okay, but so you don't defend Karl Lagerfeld, for example, saying that Pippa Middleton should just show her back and that Adele's too fat. I mean, this is not respectful of women, is it? You don't defend that industry.
But it's in the context of fashion, and fashion has these strange parameters. That's like saying, you know, the NBA shouldn't have people walking around 5 feet tall. They shouldn't even be allowed in the building. These guys are very strict about their bizarre rules with cheekbones and your eyes have to be this far apart. It's not like it's unattainable beauty. It's a bizarre freak show.
But
and they've chosen this, and you have to adhere to that. And there's no way Terry can change that.
Holding a taste leadership position in promoting hypersexualized imagery of women and endorsing the way that Terry Richardson is allegedly behaving by not coming down on him.
And
there are many of us in the industry who do not endorse his work or endorse him. A lot of stars don't know. They haven't seen the images on Tumblr. They haven't seen the images in Terry World of the graphic sexual acts that he engages with and the way that he's fronting themselves. They don't know that kind of behavior. And I would just go back to young women not being believed and it taking many years for them to get credible testimony through and say, wait and see.
Okay, Gavin McInnes, Karen Franklin, thank you very much for joining me.